I never thought I'd be the one telling a story about an HOA Karen, but life sometimes likes to mess with you. My name is Nathan Brooks, a 34-year-old software engineer, and I bought a beautiful house in Cedar Grove, a peaceful suburban neighborhood in Washington, USA. What hooked me right away was the spacious backyard, where I set up a cute little workshop. I use it to tinker with tech projects, from building smart LED lights to filming short funny videos for online posting. That workshop is where I find calm, my private corner to escape endless lines of code. Cedar Grove is the kind of neighborhood you'd think only exists in paintings. Two-story houses painted in soft colors, neatly trimmed lawns, and low white picket fences, all perfectly aligned. Everything here is under the control of the Homeowners Association, or HOA. When I bought the house, the realtor assured me that since my place was on the edge of the neighborhood, far from the main road, the HOA would barely notice me. They just asked to keep the house tidy, the lawn up to standard, and pay fees on time, things I found reasonable. I always diligently mowed the lawn, kept the yard clean, and tried to be a good neighbor. For the first 2 years, I barely had to deal with the HOA, and I loved that quiet life, but things changed when Elaine Warner, secretly nicknamed Karen by the whole neighborhood, became HOA president. Elaine swept in like a tornado, declaring she'd bring the neighborhood to order. To her, order meant sending violation notices for every tiny infraction, from trash cans left out past 6 hours, to someone planting flowers deemed not aesthetically pleasing. I heard someone got fined just for leaving a bike in their yard overnight. Elaine always showed up with her curled blonde hair, a polo shirt embroidered with the HOA logo, and a piercing gaze that seemed to hunt for everyone's mistakes. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. The first time I clashed with Elaine was when she knocked on my door, holding a bright pink violation notice, claiming my backyard fence was an unapproved structure. I was stunned, as I'd gotten full approval and measured everything carefully before building it. "Miss Warner," I said, trying to stay calm, "I have the permit for this fence. I sent it to the HOA beforehand." She snorted, eyes narrowing. "Elaine," she corrected me, her voice sharp as a knife, "I'll check again, Mr. Brooks, but if there's any violation, you'll have to take it down." I showed her the paperwork, proving everything was legit, but she just glanced at it and walked off, leaving me standing there uneasy. The way she looked at me felt like she was already planning her next move. I tried to think it was just a misunderstanding, that she'd back off once she saw I was right, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over. And I was right. Things were about to get much messier when I found something bizarre right in front of my house, dragging me into a fight I never wanted. After that run-in with Elaine Warner, I tried to shake off the unease and focus on work, but her icy stare lingered in my mind, like she was waiting for her next chance to strike. Turns out, I didn't have to wait long. One evening, while editing a short video in my workshop, I noticed a strange flickering light from the front yard. At first, I thought it was a faulty street light, but this light was smaller, steadier, like it was trying to get attention. Curious, I went outside to check, and that's when I saw it. My blood boiled. A tiny security camera, bolted to the lamp post right in front of my house. I stood there, staring at the camera, feeling like someone had invaded my personal space. That lamppost was on my property, I knew for sure because I'd checked the deeds when I bought the house. I pulled out my phone, opened a Wi-Fi scanning app, and sure enough, the camera was connected to a network called Cedar Grove HOA_security. My heart raced. Was Elaine really pulling this stunt? I went back inside, grabbed my property documents, and confirmed what I already knew: the lamppost was mine, not common land like the HOA often claimed. The next morning, I called Elaine directly. I tried to keep my voice steady, though I wanted to yell. "Miss Warner," I started, "I found a camera on the lamppost in front of my house. It's on my land, and I didn't approve it. Can you explain?" There was a pause, then she answered in that fake sweet tone I'd heard before. "Nathan, call me Elaine, that camera's for neighborhood safety. We got complaints about lawns not being maintained properly, and the camera will help document violations like that. I was nearly speechless. My lawn, I mow it religiously every week. Elaine, I stressed, that lamppost is my private property. You had no right to install a camera without permission. I want it removed now. She gave a smug little laugh, the kind that made me want to punch a wall. Nathan, I'm afraid you're mistaken. The area near the road is considered common land under HOA rules. I'll look into it, but the camera stays until we verify. She hung up before I could argue back. I sat down, trying to rein in my anger. I couldn't believe she'd lie so blatantly. I opened my laptop, double-checked the property documents, and found no mention of the lamppost being common land. I snapped photos of the camera, saved the Wi-Fi network info, and decided to send a formal email to the HOA board, attaching copies of my deeds. I kept it short, polite, demanding the camera's immediate removal, but deep down, I knew Elaine wouldn't back down easily. Less than a day later, I got a response, not from the board, but from Elaine herself. She sent a bright pink violation notice, accusing me of obstructing community safety efforts and threatening a $200 fine if I didn't cooperate. I read it, and almost laughed at her audacity, but a chill ran through me. This wasn't about fences or lawns anymore. Elaine was targeting me, and I had a gut feeling that camera was just the start of a bigger game she'd already planned out. I sat staring at the bright pink violation notice Elaine Warner sent, feeling like I was being dragged into a game I didn't want to play. Her accusation of obstructing community safety efforts was beyond ridiculous, but the way she blatantly ignored my property documents made it clear this wasn't a misunderstanding. Elaine was gunning for me, and I needed to act before she went too far. I decided not to let emotions take over, and instead face her head-on, like the cooperative neighbor she always demanded. The next morning, I gathered my property deeds, copies of the email I'd sent, and photos of the camera on the lamppost. I planned to go to the HOA office to talk, but before I could step out, the doorbell rang. I checked my own security camera, a new habit since the Elaine fiasco, and saw her standing there, arms clutching a thick stack of papers, her blonde curls still perfect despite the damp weather. I opened the door, forcing a smile. Elaine, hi, what's up? She didn't bother with pleasantries, cutting straight to it with an icy tone. Brooks, I've reviewed your documents, and while the lamppost may be yours, the way you're using your front yard for whatever it is, she paused, flipping through her papers like she was searching for words, is not in line with Cedar Grove's aesthetic standards. I raised an eyebrow, staying calm. My front yard, you mean the lawn I mow every week, and the potted plants I water regularly? How's that affecting the neighborhood? Elaine, call me Elaine, she snapped, chin jutting up. Whatever you think, all structures and activities in Cedar Grove must follow our guidelines. I need to inspect your front and backyards to ensure no further violations. I leaned against the doorframe, fighting the urge to lose it. Elaine, I emphasized, my house is 100 meters from the main road, and neither my front nor backyard is visible from the community street. Plus, HOA rules only cover exterior appearances, not letting you onto my private property. She took a sharp breath, clearly not used to being shut down. Mr. Brooks, if you don't cooperate, I'll have to report this to the board. You know, our cameras will catch everything, and I'm sure I'll find violations. Her threat made my blood boil, but I kept my voice even. You want to inspect, fine, but do it properly. Send a formal request, and I'll respond through my lawyer. As for that camera, I've already demanded it come down. If it's still there by the weekend, I'll handle it myself. Elaine stood frozen, her face reddening, obviously not expecting my pushback. She muttered something about this isn't over, and stormed off, leaving me with a mix of triumph and worry. I knew she wouldn't stop, and sure enough, 2 days later, another violation notice appeared in my mailbox. This time, she claimed my lawn was too long, a flat-out lie, since I'd mowed it the day before. I snapped photos of the lawn, sent a reply email with proof, and asked the HOA board to review Elaine's behavior. But deep down, I knew she wouldn't let up easily. I started talking to neighbors. Sophie Hayes, an older lady a few houses down, told me Elaine once fined her for hanging Christmas lights too early. Amir Khan, a young engineer at the end of the street, said Elaine was installing cameras all over the neighborhood, without anyone's consent. The more I heard, the clearer it became that Elaine wasn't just after me, she wanted to control all of Cedar Grove. And I knew if I didn't act, that camera in front of my house would just be the start of bigger problems. After my confrontation with Elaine Warner, I knew she wouldn't stop, but I didn't expect her to play dirty so fast. Just days after I refused her yard inspection, my mailbox started filling with HOA violation notices. One claimed my lawn was too long, despite me mowing it the day before, with photos to prove it. Another said my front yard potted plants were not aesthetically appropriate, absurd, since they were just mint plants I grew to repel mosquitoes. Each time I replied with emails, attaching photos and documents proving I was right, but Elaine didn't care. She kept sending more notices, like she was trying to bury me in paperwork, until I gave in. I started feeling trapped in a cat-and-mouse game, with Elaine as a cat who loved showing her claws. I decided to dig into her, and luckily, my neighbor Sophie Hayes was a walking encyclopedia. Sophie, a cheerful older lady a few houses down, was known for her flower-filled garden, and 3 cats she adored like kids. Over an afternoon chat with tea, Sophie shared that Elaine once fined her for hanging Christmas lights, 2 days too early. She came to my house with her clipboard, reading rules aloud like I was in elementary school, Sophie said, shaking her head. She also hinted Elaine had misused HOA funds to buy decorations for her office, though no one could confirm it since people avoided confronting her. I also met Amir Khan, a young engineer down the street, when he came to borrow a wrench to fix his bike. Amir bluntly shared that Elaine was installing cameras all over the neighborhood, without permission. She put one near my house, said it was for security, he said, annoyed. But I know she just wants to control everyone. No one dares speak up. These stories showed me Elaine wasn't just targeting me, she wanted Cedar Grove as her personal playground. Things heated up when I got an email from the HOA about the Cedar Grove Autumn Fest, a big annual community event. Normally, it's held at the neighborhood clubhouse, but this year the clubhouse was under repair. And guess what? Elaine decided my backyard was the perfect substitute. Her email dripped with fake sweetness. Dear Mr. Brooks, the HOA board looks forward to working with you to host Autumn Fest in your spacious backyard. This is a chance to show your community spirit. We'll overlook your current violations if you agree. I read it and wanted to laugh. Violations? All fabricated by her. I replied politely but firmly, thank you for the offer, but my backyard is my private workspace. I can't allow it to be used for the event. I cited HOA rules, stressing no one could force private property for community use. I thought that was clear enough, but Elaine wasn't the type to take no for an answer. Just a day later, she showed up at my door, this time with 2 other HOA members, all wearing matching logoed polo shirts. Mr. Brooks, good news, Elaine announced, stepping into my hallway, without an invite. The board has decided to waive all your violations in exchange for letting us use your backyard for Autumn Fest. With 150 guests, your yard is perfect for our rustic chic theme. I stood there, jaw dropped. You mean use my private workspace for your party? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Community event, she corrected, eyes glinting. You're a Cedar Grove resident, don't you want to contribute? I took a deep breath. I'm swamped with work and my workshop is full of equipment I can't move. I'm declining. Elaine smiled, but her eyes were ice cold. You should reconsider, Mr. Brooks. Cooperation would make life here much easier. She handed me a formal request paper and left, leaving me fuming and determined to stop this nonsense. After Elaine Warner left with her fake smile and veiled threat, I stood in my hallway, still holding her formal request, feeling like I'd been doused with cold water. Use my backyard for Cedar Grove Autumn Fest. She really thought I'd just open my workshop to let 150 strangers trample my tech projects I'd worked on for months? No way. But her line about cooperation would make life easier kept echoing, like a warning she wouldn't stop unless I gave in. I tossed the paper on the table, deciding it was time to act instead of just firing back emails. I sat down with my laptop, rereading the HOA bylaws I'd downloaded ages ago. As I suspected, nothing allowed the HOA to force residents to use private property for community events. Even better, Elaine's unauthorized camera on my lamppost violated Washington state privacy laws. I needed more info, and luckily, Sophie Hayes and Amir Khan were ready to help. Over coffee at Sophie's, I learned Elaine didn't just misuse HOA funds for decorations, she'd also signed a contract with a security company to install cameras all over the neighborhood. She said it was for safety. Amir shrugged, but I bet she's just spying on everyone. An idea hit me when I thought about that camera in front of my house. If Elaine loved watching me through a lens so much, I'd give her a show she'd never forget. I'm a software engineer. Hacking into the camera's Wi-Fi network was no big deal. After a few hours of tinkering, I accessed the video feed and found Elaine secretly watching recordings on her laptop in the HOA office. She even noted every violation she thought she'd caught. I laughed. This was her weak spot. I decided to film a funny video right in front of her camera, both to tick her off and to show the neighbors how absurd this Karen was. The next morning, I prepped my props: a t-shirt printed with HOA Never Sleeps, a backward baseball cap, and a cardboard sign reading Nathan's Free Zone. I stood by the lamppost, blasted disco music from a Bluetooth speaker, and danced a goofy routine I knew looked utterly ridiculous. Then I set up a fake lawn with tall plastic grass I'd bought at a toy store, placing it next to the sign. I recorded it all on my phone, edited in some silly sound effects, and posted it to the Nextdoor group under the alias Funny Neighbor. I didn't say it was my house, just captioned, "Someone in Cedar Grove is trolling the HOA." Within hours, the post had dozens of comments. Neighbors were cracking up, calling it peak rebellion. Some even guessed it was me, but I played dumb when Sophie texted to ask. By afternoon I got a new violation notice from Elaine, accusing me of damaging the community's image and installing an unauthorized structure, meaning the fake grass. I replied with an email, attaching photos of the plastic grass and the receipt, stressing it was just a temporary toy. But I knew she was livid. Amir said Elaine called an emergency HOA board meeting that very night. I showed up to the meeting, wearing an innocent smile. Elaine stood at the front, face flushed, declaring that certain residents are deliberately causing trouble. She stared right at me saying, "We won't tolerate vandalism. HOA cameras will catch everything, and violators will face heavy fines." I raised my hand, voice soft. "Elaine, if the cameras catch everything, I'm sure you've seen my lawn is perfectly compliant, right?" The room burst into laughter, and Elaine just glared before changing the subject. On my way home, I knew I'd hit a nerve, but I also felt the pressure mounting. Elaine wouldn't let this slide, and I needed to brace for her next move. I texted Sophie and Amir, asking if they'd help me take this drama to the next level. They both agreed instantly, and I started planning how to turn Elaine's own camera against her. After that HOA meeting where I embarrassed Elaine Warner in front of the whole neighborhood, I knew she wouldn't sit quietly while I kept trolling her with funny videos. But I didn't expect her to go this far. My Nextdoor camera stunt had Cedar Grove buzzing. Neighbors messaged me privately, laughing hysterically over the fake lawn and free zone sign. Sophie Hayes even suggested I make more videos, and Amir Khan offered to be a witness if I needed one. I felt like I was gaining allies, but at the same time, I sensed Elaine was plotting something nastier. A few days passed calmly, and I started to think she might have moved on to other targets. But then one morning, while checking emails in my workshop, my phone pinged with an alert from my own security camera, the one I'd added after the lamppost incident. I opened the app and froze. Elaine, with two people in HOA polo shirts, was standing in my backyard, near my workshop. She held a clipboard, pointing at something, while another guy carried a toolbox and a new security camera. I bolted outside, heart pounding, torn between rage and disbelief. "What are you doing in my yard?" I shouted, storming toward them. Elaine turned, unfazed, flashing her usual fake smile. "Mr. Brooks, we're just inspecting this area to ensure security. The board approved installing another camera here, since your backyard is clearly an issue." I stared, jaw dropped. "An issue? This is my private property. You have no right to be here, and you're definitely not putting up any cameras." She tilted her chin, voice syrupy. "Nathan, your backyard borders the neighborhood, so it's under HOA jurisdiction. We have an emergency permit to install security equipment." She waved a paper, but I didn't bother looking. I knew it was another bluff, like her common land claim about the lamppost. Emergency permit, I snapped. You trespassed on my property, brought strangers here, and planned to spy on me with a camera. Get out now, or I'm calling the cops. One of her companions, who I later learned was Carl Rivera, an HOA board member, looked uneasy. Elaine, maybe we should double-check the paperwork, he mumbled, but she cut him off. Carl, don't be silly. We have full authority to act for the community's benefit. She turned to me, eyes gleaming. Mr. Brooks, go ahead and call the police. They'll side with the HOA like always. I didn't wait. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and explained briefly, people are trespassing on my property, trying to install an unauthorized camera, and refusing to leave. While waiting for the police, I stood guarding my workshop door, watching Elaine and her crew like a hawk. She started directing the other guy to mount the camera on a nearby tree, acting like I wasn't there. Stop right now, I yelled, but she just shrugged. We're working, Mr. Brooks. You don't want to interfere, do you? Less than 15 minutes later, a police car pulled up. Officer Harper, a calm guy I'd met at a neighborhood meeting, stepped out. I quickly explained, showing him my property deeds, and the email I'd sent the HOA demanding the old camera's removal. This is my backyard, officer, I said. They have no right to be here, and this camera is illegal. Harper nodded, turning to Elaine. Ma'am, I need to see the permit for this installation. Elaine fumbled, handing over the same paper, but Harper glanced at it and gave it back. This isn't a valid permit. According to Mr. Brooks' documents, this is private property. You need to leave now, or I'll have to cite you for trespassing. Carl and the other guy quickly packed up, muttering apologies, but Elaine stood her ground, face beet red. This is community property, she shrieked, but Harper shut her down. No ma'am, it's not. Go. As they left, Elaine glared at me, whispering, this isn't over, Mr. Brooks. I shrugged, playing it cool, but inside, I knew this battle was just starting. I had to do something to make sure she didn't come back, and this time I'd go bigger. After Officer Harper forced Elaine Warner and her crew to leave my backyard, I felt both relieved and on edge. Relieved because I'd protected my private space, but on edge because Elaine's parting threat, this isn't over, kept ringing in my ears. I knew she wasn't the type to back down, especially after being humiliated in front of the HOA board and the neighborhood through my trolling video. I decided to act before she could pull another stunt, and this time, I'd turn her own camera against her in a bigger way. I started by checking my own security system. I added a small camera in my workshop, facing the backyard, in case Elaine returned. I also reached out to Sophie Hayes and Amir Khan, filling them in on the trespassing incident. Sophie cracked up hearing about it. She really thought she could waltz into your yard without getting caught. Classic Karen. Amir was more serious, suggesting I contact a lawyer to prep for more trouble. I agreed and called Lydia Chen, an old college friend now working as a real estate dispute attorney. Lydia confirmed my suspicions. Elaine's actions didn't just violate HOA rules, they could be sued for trespassing. While waiting for Lydia to draft a cease and desist letter, I got an email from the HOA titled, Emergency Meeting Notice, Decision Passed. Curious and a bit worried, I opened it and was floored. Elaine claimed the board had held an emergency meeting, without notifying residents, a clear violation of HOA rules, and passed a special decision allowing the HOA to temporarily use adjacent areas for security. Worse, they attached a new map labeling my backyard as partially common land, due to unclear boundaries. I stared at the map, an obviously sloppy edit, and couldn't believe she'd go this far. I called Lydia immediately, sending her the email and map. This is complete nonsense, Nathan, she said over the phone, her voice full of outrage. They can't redraw property lines, and an unannounced meeting is illegal. I'll draft a cease and desist letter today. Lydia worked fast, sending a letter demanding the board rescind the decision and warning of legal consequences if Elaine continued. I printed copies and hand-delivered them to every board member's house, except Elaine's. She wasn't home, so I slipped it into her mailbox. I thought things might calm down, but the next morning, I was woken by rapid doorbell ringing. I checked my security camera, and saw Elaine standing there, this time with a stranger in a worker's uniform, holding a toolbox. I opened the door, forcing calm. Elaine, what now? She smiled, but her eyes were ice cold. "Mr. Brooks, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No one's threatening you. We're just trying to improve neighborhood security, and your backyard is a key spot. You don't want your neighbors thinking you lack community spirit, do you?" I crossed my arms, shaking my head. "I've made it clear, my backyard isn't for use. Have you received my lawyer's cease and desist letter? If not, I can send another copy." Elaine froze, clearly not expecting me to be a step ahead. "You know," she said, her voice starting to waver, "those cameras catch everything. People have complained about noise from your workshop, drills, loud music late at night. Very disruptive." I laughed, a bigger laugh than I meant to. "Noise? The nearest house is 100 meters away, and I don't use drills after 6 p.m. Want to file a formal complaint? Go ahead. I'm ready to respond through legal channels." Elaine paled, but tried to hold her confident facade. "Autumn Fest is coming up. We've planned to use your backyard as the centerpiece. If you obstruct, the whole neighborhood will know how selfish you are." I shrugged. "If you advertise my yard without permission, that's your mistake, not mine." She shot me one last glare, then turned away, dragging the worker with her. As her figure faded, I knew I needed a bigger plan, a real performance to make the whole neighborhood see Elaine Warner's true face. After that tense confrontation with Elaine Warner, I knew she wouldn't let it slide after I shut her down with the lawyer's letter. Her threat about Cedar Grove Autumn Fest and the way she ignored evidence made me feel like I was playing chess with someone who didn't know the rules. I decided to beef up security for my backyard, checking my cameras and ensuring the workshop was locked tight. I also texted Sophie Hayes and Amir Khan, asking if they'd heard anything more about Elaine. Sophie replied instantly, "She's been holding board meetings non-stop, probably plotting to get back at you. Watch out." I nodded, knowing I had to be ready for her next trick. One afternoon, a few days later, I was editing a video in my workshop when my phone pinged with a security camera alert. I opened the app and could hardly believe my eyes. Elaine, with 3 others, 2 in HOA polo shirts and 1 in worker clothes, was in my backyard. They carried a toolbox, a ladder and a new security camera. Elaine was directing the worker to climb a tree near my workshop, clearly planning to mount the camera right where I worked. I rushed outside, heart pounding, anger surging like never before. "What are you doing in my yard?" I shouted, striding toward them. Elaine turned, unfazed, flashing her usual fake smile. "Mr. Brooks, we're just finalizing security installations per the board's decision. You got the email about the emergency meeting, right?" I was almost speechless at her gall. "That decision was illegal," I snapped, pointing at the tree. "You're trespassing on my private property, and I sent a clear cease and desist letter. Get out now, or I'm calling the police." Elaine crossed her arms, eyes glinting. "Nathan, you love making a scene. This is common land, and this camera is for neighborhood safety. You don't want the whole area knowing you're against community security, do you?" One of her group, who I recognized as Carl Rivera, looked visibly uneasy. "Elaine, maybe we should check with the board again." He hesitated, but Elaine cut him off. "Carl, be quiet. Mr. Brooks is just overreacting. Keep installing the camera." The worker paused, glancing between me and Elaine, but started climbing the ladder. I didn't wait. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and explained briefly. "People are trespassing on my property, trying to install an unauthorized camera, and refusing to leave. I need police now." While waiting, I stood blocking the tree, staring Elaine down. "Stop this now, or I'll take that camera down in front of you." She shrugged, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Go ahead, Nathan. The police will side with the HOA, like always." Less than 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of my house. Officer Harper, who handled the previous incident, stepped out with a stern look. I quickly explained, showing him my property deeds, Lydia Chen's cease and desist letter, and the fake map Elaine used. "Officer, this is my backyard," I said. "They have no right to be here, and this camera is illegal." Harper nodded, turning to Elaine. "Ma'am, I need to see the permit for this installation, and why you're here." Elaine fumbled, handing over a stack of papers, but Harper glanced at them and handed them back. This isn't a valid permit, and this map doesn't match city records. According to Mr. Brooks' documents, this is private property. You're trespassing." Elaine screamed, face beet red. "This is common land." The board voted. Harper cut her off, voice firm. "Miss Warner, the board can't vote to use private property without consent. Leave now, or I'll have to cite you." Carl and the others hurriedly packed up, muttering apologies to me, but Elaine stood there, clutching her clipboard like she wanted to crush it. "Autumn Fest is tomorrow," she yelled. "We need this yard, and you're ruining everything." Harper crossed his arms. "That's not Mr. Brooks' problem. Go." Elaine finally left, shooting me a look that could burn. "You'll regret this, Nathan," she hissed through gritted teeth before getting into her car. As they disappeared, Harper advised me to change the backyard gate lock and upgrade my security cameras. I thanked him, promising to do it right away. That night, I texted Sophie and Amir, recounting everything and saying it was time to take my performance to the next level. Elaine had gone too far, and I'd make the whole neighborhood see who she really was. After Officer Harper kicked Elaine Warner out of my backyard, I knew she wouldn't give up, but I also sensed a chance to end this farce was near. Her "you'll regret this" threat only fueled my resolve. I had proof of her wrongdoing, from the fake map to trespassing, and support from Sophie Hayes and Amir Khan gave me confidence the neighborhood would back me if I played my cards right. I started prepping for a final performance, not just to protect my yard, but to show all of Cedar Grove the real face of this Karen. The next day I got a message from Carl Rivera, the HOA board member who'd apologized during the prior trespassing incident. Carl wrote, "Nathan, we're holding an emergency meeting tomorrow morning to review Elaine's actions. She's gone too far, and I want you to come present. Got any evidence?" I grinned, texting back, "I'll be there, and I've got enough evidence to make the whole neighborhood's jaw drop." I contacted Lydia Chen, my lawyer, asking her to prepare a summary of Elaine's legal violations. I also spent the night editing a compilation video, my funny clips shot in front of her camera, mixed with footage of her secretly watching on her laptop, which I got by lightly hacking her network, and a recording of her threatening me. The next morning, I arrived at the neighborhood clubhouse for the meeting, with Lydia by my side. The room was packed, not just board members, but dozens of residents, likely hearing whispers of the drama. Elaine arrived late, her usually perfect blonde curls slightly messy, but she still tried to project confidence, forcing a stiff smile as she took the chairwoman's seat. Carl stood up, voice shaky but firm. "We're here to review the conduct of HOA President, Elaine Warner, regarding allegations of abuse of power and rule violations." A resident, Maria Torres, who'd been fined by Elaine for hanging a Mexican flag in her yard, stood up. "She sent me violation notices, even though I had a permit," Maria said, voice full of frustration. Sophie went next, recounting the Christmas lights incident, and how Elaine threatened to fine her for her cats. Emir spoke too, slamming Elaine for installing cameras all over without consent. The room grew tense, and Elaine started fidgeting, trying to interrupt, but was told by Carl to stay quiet. My turn came. I stood up, carrying my laptop and a stack of documents. "I have proof of Elaine trespassing on my property twice," I began, presenting my property deeds, Lydia's cease and desist letter, and the fake map she used. She also put an illegal camera on my lamppost and tried adding another in my backyard, despite the law. I played the recording of Elaine threatening me, making the room buzz. Then I showed the video compilation, me dancing disco in my HOA Never Sleeps shirt, setting up the fake lawn, and finally Elaine angrily watching the clips on her laptop, yelling, "He's sabotaging me." The room roared with laughter, but it quickly turned to anger as they realized how many people she'd been spying on. Lydia stood up, adding, "Miss Warner's actions violate HOA rules and Washington state privacy laws. She also misappropriated HOA funds to buy cameras, as this receipt shows." She presented a copy of an invoice Amir found in the HOA office. Elaine tried to cut in, her voice breaking. "It's all a misunderstanding. I did everything for the neighborhood." But Carl stopped her. "Elaine, you forged documents, trespassed, and abused power. Do you have anything to say? Elaine shot up, face purple. You don't know what I've done for this neighborhood. I kept everything in order. She pointed at me. He's the troublemaker, not me. But no one listened. Carl called for a vote to remove Elaine immediately. The result was nearly unanimous, only one abstention. Elaine stood stunned, mouth agape, then suddenly screamed, "You'll all regret this. I've been president for years." She stormed out, leaving a toppled chair and awkward silence behind. As the door slammed, the room exhaled. Carl thanked me, but I just smiled. "Thank the whole neighborhood," I said. "Now please take down her cameras." Everyone laughed, and I knew I'd won, not just for me, but for all of Cedar Grove. After Elaine Warner's dramatic ousting at the HOA meeting, the air in Cedar Grove felt noticeably lighter. The neighborhood was still abuzz about her downfall, from her furious screams to the way she bolted from the meeting like she was being chased. I walked out of the clubhouse with Lydia Chen, feeling like a weight had lifted. Sophie Hayes patted my shoulder, beaming. "You did great, Nathan. Now we can live without being spied on." Emir Khan and Maria Torres came by to congratulate me too, and for the first time, I saw the neighborhood united for something right. A few weeks later, rumors spread that Elaine had left Cedar Grove, some saying she moved to a distant town to dodge the scandal. Carl Rivera, who led the vote to remove her, revealed the HOA office was being audited for suspected fund misappropriation, a fitting end to her schemes. The neighborhood quickly elected a new HOA president, Ellen, a mild-mannered woman, who promised to ease up on silly rules and listen to residents. Carl invited me to join the board, but I declined instantly. "Thanks, but I'd rather keep my backyard," I laughed. I wasn't cut out for management, just wanted to live quietly and make my goofy videos. To celebrate, I hosted a small party in my backyard, the first time I opened my workshop to neighbors. Sophie brought homemade cookies, Amir showed up with a Bluetooth speaker, and Maria arrived with her family and a tray of fragrant tacos. We laughed, swapped stories of Elaine's unfair fines, and even danced to the disco tune I'd used in front of her camera. As the sun set, I felt grateful for these new friends who'd stood with me to protect our neighborhood. But I couldn't resist one last prank. I set up a fake camera in my front yard, adding a small sign, "Warning, Karen is gone." Neighbors passing by cracked up, and Sophie snapped a photo, posting it to the next door group with the caption, "Nathan's new artwork." Emir suggested making more to place around the neighborhood, but I shook my head. One was enough to remind everyone of those crazy days. Sitting in my workshop that night, I reflected on everything. I'd bought my house in Cedar Grove for peace, but ended up in a battle I never expected. Elaine tried to turn the neighborhood into her personal playground, but with everyone's unity, we took back our space. I learned privacy isn't just a fence or a locked door, it's something you have to stand up for, sometimes with a bit of humor and a well-timed performance. Now my backyard is peaceful again, my workshop is brimming with new ideas, and I no longer worry about bright pink violation notices. I opened my laptop, starting to edit a new video, not to troll anyone, but just to share some joy. Looking out at my yard, I smiled, knowing Cedar Grove was finally home. The story of Nathan Brooks and his battle with Elaine Warner in Cedar Grove reflects a common reality in the U.S. today. The tension between personal privacy and overreach by homeowners associations, HOAs. In modern American society, where suburban neighborhoods like Cedar Grove are often bound by strict rules on home appearances, from paint colors to lawn heights, Nathan's story is a vivid example of how power can be abused when unchecked. Elaine, nicknamed Karen, represents the type obsessed with imposing personal will, from installing cameras on Nathan's lamppost to invading his backyard to force its use for Cedar Grove Autumn Fest. These actions mirror real issues. Many HOAs in America face criticism for overstepping, from absurd fines to monitoring residents with unapproved cameras, causing stress and fracturing communities. The lesson here isn't just about standing up for your rights, but doing so smartly and together. Nathan didn't just counter Elaine with legal documents, like property deeds and Lydia Chen's letters. He got creative with his performance, filming funny videos in front of her camera, from the free zone sign to the disco dance. This shows the power of humor and social media, like Nextdoor, in exposing abuse, a tactic fitting American culture, where free speech and creativity are valued. Support from Sophie, Amir, Maria, and Carl underscores the importance of community, a core American value, where neighbors often unite against injustice. Real-life advice is when facing unfair control: know your rights, use clear evidence like Nathan did with documents, and don't hesitate to rally support from those around you. The final fake camera with Karen is gone reminds us that sometimes a touch of humor can turn victory into shared joy, building a stronger community. If you enjoyed my story about outsmarting Elaine and want to see more funny trolling videos, hit subscribe now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video from Cedar Grove.